The alien world was once a place of beauty and harmony, a planet filled with life and energy, where cities floated above sparkling oceans and technology and nature existed side by side. Its people were intelligent, thoughtful, and peaceful, devoted to learning, exploration, and the betterment of their society. For centuries, they had lived without fear, confident that their advanced technology and cooperative spirit would protect them from any threat. But all of that changed in a matter of weeks. Out of nowhere, a dark force arrived, an enemy far stronger, faster, and more ruthless than anything the aliens had ever imagined. Their ships appeared in the skies like shadows, black and overwhelming, blotting out stars as they moved through the atmosphere. This enemy was not interested in negotiation or coexistence. They wanted total control, and they wanted it quickly. Cities that had taken centuries to build were destroyed in moments, their brilliant towers and graceful spires reduced to twisted rubble. Oceans that had once mirrored the sky now reflected flames and smoke. Entire populations vanished in attacks so sudden and powerful that few had time to react. The alien leaders were stunned. They had faced challenges before: rival factions, occasional natural disasters, even minor skirmishes with space raiders, but nothing like this. Their weapons, designed for defense and exploration, were hopelessly inadequate. Their communication systems, which had once allowed them to coordinate across continents and planets, were now overwhelmed by interference and the chaos of war. Panic spread among the population, fear becoming a constant companion for every citizen. Families hid where they could, children clung to their parents, and older generations whispered prayers to forces they weren't even sure existed. Leaders met in emergency councils, their usual calm and rationality replaced by fear and desperation. They tried to find a way to fight back, to negotiate, to even reason with the invaders, but every attempt failed. The enemy was relentless, showing no mercy and no intention of stopping. That days turned into weeks. The situation became more dire. The alien armies had been decimated in early battles, their soldiers overwhelmed by superior firepower and tactics. Civilians were caught in the crossfire, their homes and neighborhoods turned into battlegrounds. Food and medicine became scarce, and the basic necessities of life were in jeopardy. Entire communities fled from one area to another, only to find that no place was safe. The invaders moved faster than anyone could predict, striking without warning and leaving devastation in their wake. Hope began to fade. People whispered about the possibility of extinction, a word that had always seemed distant and impossible, now creeping into conversations as a terrifying reality. Amid this chaos, a small group of alien leaders came together to find one last solution. They understood that they could not win this war alone. Their technology, their armies, and even their intelligence were not enough to stop the destruction. They needed help from someone stronger, someone capable of turning the tide. But who could possibly help them? The alien species had observed the universe for centuries, communicating occasionally with other civilizations, sending explorers into deep space, and trading knowledge and resources. Among the stars, they had heard tales of a species known as humans. Humans were strange and unpredictable, a young race by galactic standards. But they had a reputation that could not be ignored. Stories told of humans' resilience, their ability to survive impossible odds, and their power when united for a cause. Though humans had rarely interfered in interstellar conflicts, they were known to act decisively when someone's life was at stake. For the alien leaders, this was their only hope. It was not an easy decision to reach out. In the alien culture, pride and independence were deeply valued. Asking for help was considered a last resort, a humiliating admission that they could not protect their own people. Many leaders argued against it, claiming they should continue to fight even if the effort seemed hopeless. But the destruction around them was undeniable. Their planet was being reduced to ruins, and their people were suffering unimaginably. Eventually the council agreed. They had no choice. They would send a plea into the void, a message carrying not just words but the raw desperation of a civilization on the brink of extinction. Sending the message was a complicated and dangerous process. Their communications systems had been damaged in the early attacks, forcing engineers and scientists to work in constant danger to repair what they could. They had to amplify their signals to reach interstellar distances, ensuring that it could cross light years of space and still be received. They encoded their plea in multiple languages and formats, combining data, images, and even emotional patterns to make the urgency clear. They sent warnings, explanations, and desperate cries, hoping that whoever received it would understand the seriousness of their situation. And then, with heavy hearts and trembling hands, they launched the message into the universe, releasing it like a lifeboat into a stormy sea, praying that someone, somewhere, would see it and respond. On the receiving end, far away on Earth, humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that the fate of an entire civilization depended on their attention. Scientists in observatories noticed the incoming signal, initially treating it as a routine anomaly. But as they decoded it, the true nature of the message became horrifyingly clear. Images of burning cities, civilians fleeing for their lives, and statistics about casualties filled the screens. The message was not just a call for help. It was a vivid display of desperation and impending doom. Governments quickly convened, debating whether to act. Some were skeptical, questioning if this was a trick, a test, or even a hoax. Others argued that the risks of inaction were too great. Humanity had the means to help. They had the technology, the fleets, the weapons, and the intelligence. More importantly, they had the courage and determination that the alien species had heard about. After long hours of discussion and analysis, the decision was unanimous. They could not ignore the plea. The alien people, meanwhile, waited with bated breath. Days passed with no immediate response, and despair began to return. Families huddled together, wondering if their message had even reached anyone. Soldiers continued to fight, though morale was low, and some began to question whether survival was possible at all. The leaders worked tirelessly, coordinating what resources remained, strategizing for both defense and evacuation. Every new attack from the enemy felt like a countdown to the end. Yet, in the midst of hopelessness, the act of sending the message itself became a small beacon of courage. It was proof that they had done everything within their power, that they had reached out for help even when the outcome was uncertain. Finally, a response arrived. A fleet, unlike anything the aliens had ever seen, began its journey through space toward their world. The humans who had received the plea were not just sending help, they were sending overwhelming force, ships that dwarfed anything on the alien planet. Armed with advanced weaponry and supported by teams of experts, scientists and strategists were on their way. The aliens watched the approaching fleet with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Could this really be real? Could these strange beings, so far away, really come to their aid? The hope that had long been buried beneath fear and despair began to stir once again down in those final hours before contact. The aliens experienced a whirlwind of emotions. Fear was still present after all. The enemy was still near, still powerful, and still threatening to destroy everything they held dear. But there was also hope, fragile yet undeniable. Gratitude mingled with amazement at the thought that a species from across the stars would hear their cries and answer. And with that hope came a renewed determination. If help was coming, they had to hold on, to protect as many people as they could until relief arrived. Families found courage, soldiers fought with renewed vigor, and the leaders made plans not just for survival, but for recovery once the humans arrived. This phase of the story, the moment of desperate plea, is a testament to the resilience and hope that can exist even in the darkest times. It shows how, even when a civilization is on the brink of extinction, courage, humility, and the willingness to reach out for help can create a chance for survival. The aliens' plea was more than just a message, it was an act of faith in the universe and in the possibility that someone else could care enough to intervene. And for humanity, the response to this plea would become a defining moment, proving that courage and strength are not just about fighting, but about choosing to act when others are in desperate need. Even as the alien planet burned and its people struggled to survive, the sending of the message marked a turning point. It was a moment of connection between two species separated by unimaginable distances, a signal that the universe could still be a place of hope, and a reminder that even in the worst circumstances, reaching out, asking for help, and daring to believe in the possibility of rescue could make all the difference. And so, as the first part of this story closes, the aliens waited, trembling yet hopeful, for the arrival of humanity's unstoppable force, a force that would not just change the outcome of the battle, but the fate of an entire civilization. When humanity received the desperate plea from the alien civilization, the response was immediate, though not without careful thought. Governments across Earth quickly convened emergency meetings, bringing together military leaders, scientists, engineers, strategists, and diplomats. The situation was unlike anything humanity had faced before. The message was clear. An entire civilization was on the brink of extinction, and they were counting on humans to intervene. The urgency of the situation left no room for hesitation or doubt. From the moment the first signals were decoded, the people of Earth felt a collective responsibility, a mixture of fear, excitement, and determination. For the first time, humanity was about to take action on a scale that would reach far beyond the stars. As discussions continued, one thing became clear: this would not be a small rescue mission. The alien civilization was facing a powerful enemy, technologically superior and utterly ruthless. Conventional fleets, standard weapons, and traditional strategies would not be enough. Humanity had to assemble a force unlike any seen before, combining the full strength of military might, advanced technology, and strategic brilliance. Ships that had once been experimental prototypes were now pushed into active deployment, armed with weapons capable of extreme precision and destructive power. Fighter squadrons were prepared to engage in space combat and ground operations simultaneously, while unmanned drones and AI-controlled systems were optimized to support both attack and defense. The scale of mobilization was unprecedented, and every department, every facility, every capable individual was called into action. Behind the scenes, the work was extraordinary. Engineers labored in enormous shipyards and laboratories, modifying starships, designing new energy shields, and upgrading propulsion systems to ensure that the fleet could travel vast distances across the stars at incredible speed. Scientists developed new forms of communication and coordination to link every ship, fighter, and ground unit into a single, cohesive network. AI algorithms were programmed to predict enemy movements, analyze terrain and battlefield conditions, and optimize attack strategies and every detail was scrutinized, every potential weakness addressed. Humanity was preparing not just to intervene, they were preparing to win decisively. The preparation was not limited to the military. Ordinary civilians played crucial roles as well. Skilled programmers worked day and night to create simulations and manage data systems that could predict enemy behavior. Medical teams prepared supplies, medications, and life support systems for both human forces and the alien population they would encounter. Logistics specialists ensured that fuel, food, and essential resources would be available across interstellar distances. Even educators, scientists, and volunteers who had never worked in warfare before were recruited to assist in research, analysis, and planning. The entire planet was mobilized in a way that had never happened before in human history. There was a sense that this was not just a military mission, it was a test of humanity's collective capability, creativity, and determination. Amid all this preparation, humans were constantly studying the alien data sent along with a plea for help. Detailed maps of cities, satellite images of battle zones, records of enemy attacks, and cultural insights were all analyzed. Understanding the alien civilization was crucial, not just to coordinate defense strategies, but to ensure that humanity's arrival would save as many lives as possible. Cultural liaisons worked tirelessly to interpret communication methods, predict how the aliens might react under stress, and determine the most effective ways to support them. Every piece of knowledge was scrutinized and incorporated into plans, ensuring that when humans arrived, they would be ready for anything. That as the fleet began to take shape, a sense of anticipation swept through Earth. News broadcasts reported the mobilization, though many details were classified to prevent panic. Citizens watched as the first starships were launched, understanding that this mission was historic in scale. For some, it was inspiring, a reminder of humanity's potential to act with courage and compassion. For others, it was frightening. There was so much that was unknown, so much that could go wrong. But the general sentiment was one of hope and determination. Humanity had received a plea for help, and they were not going to ignore it. Training and coordination were intense. Pilots spent hours in simulators practicing maneuvers in conditions designed to mimic the alien battlefield. Ground troops underwent rigorous preparation, learning to operate in unfamiliar environments, adapting to the possibility of advanced enemy technologies, and coordinating with alien allies who were expected to assist them once they arrived. AI systems were tested repeatedly, with multiple contingencies built in to ensure no failure could jeopardize the mission. Every unit, every soldier, every specialist was drilled to respond with precision and flexibility. Human forces were not just preparing to fight, they were preparing to become a unified, unstoppable force capable of turning the tide of war. Despite the high level of planning, there was still uncertainty. Humans had never faced this enemy before. Their tactics, strategies, and technology were largely unknown. There was no guarantee of success. Yet, instead of hesitation, humans relied on creativity, adaptability, and sheer determination. Engineers devised new weapons on the fly. Scientists found innovative ways to enhance communication and coordination, and strategists developed flexible battle plans that could respond to unexpected challenges. Each day brought new challenges, but humanity's ability to innovate and adapt became one of its greatest strengths. While the fleet was being prepared, Earth's leaders also addressed the moral and political aspects of the mission. This was not just a war, it was an act of compassion and responsibility. They debated how to ensure that human intervention would protect life, without unnecessarily harming the alien population or creating new conflicts. Philosophers, diplomats, and ethicists were consulted to help guide the decision-making process, ensuring that the mission aligned with humanity's principles. The goal was clear: save as many lives as possible while maintaining humanity's values of justice, respect, and cooperation. As preparations neared completion, the human fleet stood ready, a testament to collective effort and determination. Massive ships bristling with weapons and shields, fleets of smaller, faster fighters, and specialized support craft formed an impressive armada. Behind the scenes, every calculation had been made, every contingency planned for. Yet the true test would come when the fleet reached the alien world, when humans would face the reality of battle, the chaos of destruction, and the challenge of protecting an entire civilization from annihilation. During this phase, the aliens on their planet could not yet see humanity's preparations. They continued to struggle against the enemy, facing attacks that seemed endless and unimaginable. But even from afar, humans were working tirelessly, their focus unwavering. Every decision, every innovation, and every effort was guided by the knowledge that lives hung in the balance. It was a demonstration not only of technological prowess but of human courage, resilience, and compassion. The act of preparing the fleet was itself a story of heroism, a reminder that when faced with the suffering of others, humanity had the capacity to respond with extraordinary force and dedication. Finally, the day came when the fleet was ready to depart. Humans stood on the threshold of history, aware that their actions would not only save a civilization but define how the universe would see them. Ships lifted off in unison, engines roaring, cutting through the atmosphere and into the depths of space. Each vessel carried with it the hopes of millions of people on Earth, the expectations of the alien civilization, and the determination to act decisively against any threat. The journey ahead was long and uncertain, but humans were prepared, and their resolve was unshakable. The preparations that had taken days, weeks, and months of relentless effort had created a force capable of confronting unimaginable danger. Humanity was ready to answer the plea for help not just with compassion, but with unstoppable power. The phase of preparation highlighted more than military strength. It revealed the unity of humanity, the ability of diverse nations, cultures, and individuals to come together for a common cause. It showed that when a civilization recognizes the suffering of others, it can harness its collective intelligence, courage, and creativity to act decisively. In the quiet moments before departure, as engineers finished final adjustments, pilots reviewed their missions, and strategists refined their plans, there was a shared sense of purpose. The human fleet was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of hope, a tangible answer to the desperate plea sent across the stars. Humanity's preparation was more than just logistics, strategy, and technology. It was a demonstration of heart. It was proof that even in the vastness of space, in the face of overwhelming odds, a species could rise to meet a challenge, motivated by empathy, courage, and the belief that no plea for help should go unanswered. The stage was set, the fleet was ready, and humanity was about to embark on a journey that would test every skill, every innovation, and every ounce of determination they had. The arrival of the fleet would not only change the fate of the alien civilization, it would mark the beginning of a story that would resonate across galaxies for generations. When humanity's fleet finally approached the alien planet, the first sight was both terrifying and heartbreaking. From orbit, the world below looked like a battlefield frozen in chaos. Cities that had once soared high with magnificent architecture were now reduced to ruins, their towering spires twisted and broken. Smoke rose from vast areas, dark clouds blotting out sunlight and filling the atmosphere with a heavy, choking haze. The oceans, which had once reflected brilliant skies, were tainted with debris and fire, waves carrying the remnants of destroyed structures. Rivers that had run clear were now streaked with ash and chemical waste, evidence of weaponized attacks. Everywhere, signs of struggle and desperation were visible. Humanity's fleet hovered silently above, scanning the planet, taking in the destruction and the sheer scale of the threat. Even the most battle-hardened soldiers and commanders were taken aback by the devastation. The alien people, on the surface, could only look up and hope. For weeks, they had fought a losing battle, witnessing the decimation of everything they loved. Every day had been a fight for survival, and every night had been spent praying that something, anyone, would come to their aid. And now, at last, they saw it. The human fleet, enormous and powerful, descending from the stars. Ships that dwarfed their own vessels filled the skies, glinting with advanced technology, weapon systems, and energy shields. Fighters streaked through space like silver comets, flanking the larger ships in precise formations. For the aliens, it was almost impossible to believe. Could a single species, coming from so far away, really be capable of confronting the enemy that had brought them to the brink of extinction? Yet there it was, a force unmatched, coming to fight in their defense. The humans themselves were tense but determined. They had trained, planned, and prepared for months, but this was the moment when theory would meet reality. Commanders in the flagship coordinated the fleet with meticulous care, issuing orders with precision. Fighter squadrons launched to patrol the atmosphere, scanning for enemy movements. Smaller reconnaissance drones were deployed to gather real-time data, ensuring that every maneuver was based on the most accurate information possible. On the surface, human ground teams prepared for deployment, equipped with technology designed to protect civilians and engage the enemy with minimal collateral damage. The humans were not just arriving as warriors, they were arriving as saviors, ready to coordinate with the alien defenders to maximize efficiency and minimize further loss of life. The first encounter with the enemy was shocking. From the ruined cities, the invaders sent waves of drones and assault units to engage the human fleet. Unlike anything the humans had faced before, these enemy forces were fast, highly organized, and relentless. They attacked with a combination of advanced weaponry and cunning strategy, attempting to exploit weaknesses in the newcomers' approach. But humanity had anticipated this. Energy shields flared to life, deflecting devastating attacks, while fighter squadrons executed perfectly timed maneuvers to neutralize enemy units before they could inflict serious damage. AI-assisted targeting systems allowed human forces to respond almost instantaneously, adapting to the enemy's unpredictable tactics. The aliens watched in awe as these new allies fought with precision, coordination, and fearlessness. On the ground, humans coordinated with the surviving alien defenders. Many of the aliens were injured, exhausted, and demoralized, but the presence of humanity revitalized their spirit. Human squads worked alongside alien troops, sharing tactics, medical support, and advanced equipment. They rescued civilians trapped in destroyed buildings, extinguished fires, and helped evacuate those in danger zones. The collaboration was seamless, a testament to humans' ability to adapt and work with others even under extreme pressure. Alien families, who had spent days in fear and hiding, now had a reason to hope. Children clung to their rescuers, soldiers found renewed courage, and leaders saw a chance to reclaim what they had lost. The battle intensified as the enemy realized the humans were not just another target. They were a force that could not be intimidated. Humans struck back with overwhelming power, targeting enemy command units and disabling advanced weapon systems with surgical precision. Massive bombardments of concentrated energy struck enemy positions, carefully calculated to avoid harming civilians. Human pilots executed daring maneuvers, weaving between enemy fire and returning strikes with flawless accuracy. Ground teams used advanced exosuits and armored vehicles to protect civilians while neutralizing enemy strongholds. Every action was coordinated, every movement calculated, and every decision focused on one goal: saving the planet and its people. The aliens could hardly believe what they were witnessing. For weeks, they had been fighting a hopeless battle, losing thousands of lives daily. And now, human strangers from a distant star were turning the tide. The sheer determination and ingenuity of the humans were unlike anything the aliens had seen. They adapted quickly to local conditions, learned the enemy's patterns, and exploited weaknesses that had previously gone unnoticed. Where alien forces had been overwhelmed and demoralized, human intervention brought clarity, confidence, and a renewed sense of purpose. Even those who had lost hope began to fight again, inspired by the courage and effectiveness of their new allies. That as the battle raged, humans employed not just brute force but strategy. They created safe zones for civilians, established evacuation corridors, and prioritized protecting essential infrastructure while targeting the enemy. They combined technology with intuition, blending AI guidance with human creativity to respond to rapidly changing battlefield conditions. Enemy forces, initially confident and aggressive, found themselves being systematically dismantled. Ships were destroyed, ground units neutralized, and command centers eliminated. The invaders had never faced an opponent with such relentless precision, and slowly their confidence began to falter. Humanity's presence had an effect beyond combat. It brought hope and reassurance to the alien population which had been on the brink of despair. Families emerged from hiding, seeing for the first time in weeks that survival was possible. Soldiers regained confidence, realizing that they were no longer alone. Even the alien leaders who had sent the desperate plea felt a renewed sense of control and possibility. They began to coordinate with human commanders, sharing intelligence, resources, and strategies. Together, they began to reclaim territories, protect civilians, and counterattack with increasing effectiveness. The battle was not without its challenges. Enemy forces were clever and adaptive, striking in unpredictable ways and attempting to exploit terrain and civilian concentrations. Humans had to constantly adjust their tactics, balancing aggression with protection. Every success came with effort. Every victory required vigilance. Human and alien casualties were carefully minimized, but the chaos of battle meant that some losses were unavoidable. Yet even in the darkest moments, the determination of the humans and their alien allies never wavered. Each challenge was met with problem-solving, courage, and resilience, slowly turning what had seemed like certain defeat into a fight with hope for victory. As the first waves of battle concluded, humanity had established dominance in key areas, providing relief to beleaguered alien populations. They had saved thousands of civilians, destroyed critical enemy positions, and shown the alien people that survival was possible. The enemy, though still dangerous, was beginning to lose morale as the presence of humans forced them into a defensive stance. The tide of the battle was shifting, and the aliens could finally see a path toward safety and recovery. This moment, the arrival of humanity and the first coordinated battles marked a turning point. It was a demonstration of not just military strength but also empathy, adaptability, and teamwork. Humans had arrived in force, but they had done so with a clear purpose: to protect life, restore hope, and work alongside the aliens to reclaim their world. The aliens realized that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Humanity had answered their plea with more than just weapons. They had brought courage, strategy, and an unyielding commitment to help. Even as the battle continued, the humans maintained their focus. They knew this was only the beginning, that more challenges awaited, and that their actions would set the stage for the liberation of the entire planet. Every decision, every strike, and every rescue was made with the bigger picture in mind: to save as many lives as possible, defeat the enemy, and restore stability. For the aliens, watching humans operate with such precision and determination was They had never imagined that a species from so far away could make such an immediate and powerful impact on their survival. The first major engagement was over. Human forces had neutralized the most immediate threats, secured key areas, and established lines of communication with alien leaders. Civilians were evacuated to safer zones, and the alien defenders began to recover their confidence. Humanity's presence had turned the tide of despair into a cautious optimism. For the first time in weeks, the aliens felt that survival was within reach. The devastation had not yet ended, and the enemy was not yet defeated, but the balance had shifted. The humans had arrived, and with them came the possibility of victory, hope, and a future beyond fear. The arrival and first battle was a testament to humanity's strength, courage, and ingenuity. It showed that even in the face of overwhelming destruction, a determined force could change the course of events. It demonstrated the power of collaboration between species, the importance of preparation and adaptability, and the profound impact of acting decisively in the face of desperation. The aliens had sent a plea, and humanity had answered not just with force, but with strategy, compassion, and unwavering resolve. The battle for the alien planet was far from over. While humanity's arrival had brought hope and strength, the enemy was far from defeated. They had suffered heavy losses during the initial encounters, but they were still numerous, determined, and cunning. They retreated strategically, regrouping in fortified positions, preparing for counterattacks that they hoped would crush both the alien defenders and the human force. The landscape was chaotic, filled with destroyed cities, scorched forests, and devastated plains. The enemy had transformed the world into a nightmarish battlefield, making every advance risky and every maneuver critical. Yet humanity did not waver. They had come prepared for exactly this moment, equipped with strategies, technologies, and the unwavering resolve to protect a civilization that had no other hope. Human commanders quickly analyzed the enemy's new positions, using a combination of orbital surveillance, AI predictions, and intelligence from alien scouts. They mapped out weak points in enemy fortifications. They identified supply lines, weapon depots, and command centers that could be targeted to cripple the enemy's coordination. Humans coordinated strikes with surgical precision, ensuring that each move weakened the enemy while avoiding unnecessary destruction. This careful, calculated approach surprised the enemy, who had expected panic and chaos to dominate human tactics. Instead, they faced methodical, relentless pressure that left them scrambling to adapt on the ground. The alien defenders worked alongside humans in ways they had never imagined. For weeks they had been demoralized, fighting a losing battle with no hope of reinforcement. Now humans trained, advised, and fought alongside them, teaching new tactics, sharing advanced technology, and providing medical and logistical support. Alien soldiers who had felt hopeless regained courage and skill, learning from humans how to use terrain strategically, coordinate ambushes, and execute complex maneuvers. The collaboration transformed the battlefield. What had once seemed like scattered, desperate resistance became a coordinated, formidable defense. Civilians, too, were guided and protected, evacuated from danger zones and kept out of harm's way, allowing the defenders to concentrate on countering the enemy. As humans pushed deeper into enemy territory, they faced fierce resistance. The invaders launched counterattacks designed to disrupt the momentum of the advancing forces. They used hidden weapons, camouflaged positions, and traps intended to slow or even halt the human advance. But humanity adapted with remarkable speed. Advanced sensors detected ambushes before they could strike. AI-assisted coordination allowed human squads to respond instantly to changing threats. Tactical retreats were executed with precision, drawing the enemy into positions where humans could overwhelm them with superior firepower. The enemy began to realize that their strategies, effective against the alien forces alone, were powerless against humans. Each failed attack weakened their morale and eroded confidence, while humanity pressed forward relentlessly. One of the most remarkable aspects of this phase was the way humans combined technology with creativity. Instead of relying solely on brute force, they innovated on the battlefield. Energy shields were used to protect civilians while humans engaged enemies. Drones were deployed to distract and mislead enemy units, drawing them into traps. Advanced communication networks allowed human commanders to adapt plans in real time, coordinating multiple squads and aerial units to outmaneuver the enemy. Humans used the enemy's own tactics against them, exploiting predictable patterns and weaknesses. The alien defenders watched in awe as humans turned chaos into advantage, blending courage, intelligence, and resourcefulness to create a force that seemed unstoppable. The psychological impact on the enemy was profound. Their confidence, once absolute, began to crumble. The first signs of fear appeared among their soldiers as they realized that humans did not panic, did not hesitate, and did not retreat. Every counterattack they launched was met with overwhelming coordination and precise retaliation. Human forces anticipated moves that the enemy believed were secret, demonstrating insight and adaptability that made them seem almost omniscient. The aliens had long feared that the enemy's technological superiority made resistance impossible. But seeing humans in action changed everything. Hope was no longer just a dream, it was becoming a reality. Humanity also excelled in maintaining the morale of their alien allies. Commanders prioritized communication, ensuring that alien leaders and soldiers understood human strategies and felt involved in decisions. This partnership created trust and confidence, transforming once fragmented forces into a unified front. Alien civilians who had lived in fear saw their protectors not just surviving but thriving under pressure. They witnessed humans risking their own lives to shield others, neutralizing threats with precision, and inspiring confidence in everyone they encountered. The psychological boost provided by human presence was as critical as their military might, turning despair into determination and fear into courage. As the days passed, the humans systematically dismantled enemy positions. Major strongholds were isolated and neutralized, communication networks disrupted, and supply lines cut off. The invaders found themselves increasingly on the defensive, forced into smaller territories where their options were limited. Despite attempts to regroup, they could not withstand the relentless pressure. Each victory by human and alien forces reinforced the other, creating momentum that made retreat the only viable option for the enemy. The battlefield, once dominated by fear and destruction, began to show signs of recovery. Controlled areas were stabilized, civilians were relocated to safer zones, and the alien forces regained the ability to operate strategically rather than reactively. One of the key elements in turning the tide was humanity's use of advanced technology to coordinate multi-level operations. Orbital bombardments were carefully synchronized with ground assaults to maximize effect and minimize civilian casualties. Fighter squadrons executed rapid response maneuvers to protect vulnerable areas while intercepting enemy reinforcements. Ground teams used mobility suits, drones, and advanced reconnaissance tools to sweep enemy positions, ensuring that no stronghold could resist for long. Humans combined knowledge, strategy, and technology to create a battlefield environment where the enemy was constantly reacting, never initiating. This level of dominance demoralized the invaders and gave confidence to the alien population that victory was possible. Throughout this phase, the human forces demonstrated an extraordinary ability to balance aggression with responsibility. While they attacked enemy positions decisively, they were careful to protect civilians and essential infrastructure. Medical teams were deployed alongside combat units to provide immediate care, and evacuation plans ensured that those caught in combat zones could escape safely. This careful attention to minimizing harm further strengthened trust between humans and the aliens. It was clear that humanity had come not just to fight but to save, and that understanding made a profound difference in the morale of the entire planet. The enemy's attempts to adapt were increasingly futile. They launched desperate strikes, trying to reclaim lost territory or force humans into disadvantageous positions. Yet each attempt failed. As human forces anticipated movements and responded with overwhelming force, humans combined tactical foresight with creative solutions, using terrain to their advantage, manipulating the enemy's perception, and exploiting every weakness. The alien defenders learned quickly, adopting human strategies and applying them effectively. Together, they transformed the battlefield from one of chaos into a domain where they dictated the terms of engagement. As the tide of battle shifted, the alien population began to see tangible signs of liberation. Cities that had been occupied or destroyed were gradually reclaimed. Survivors were rescued from danger zones, and human medical teams began repairing injuries and addressing the immediate humanitarian needs. The alien people who had been living in fear began to participate actively in the recovery efforts, motivated by the presence of humans who had demonstrated not only strength but compassion. Trust between species grew, creating a sense of partnership that would prove crucial in the final stages of the conflict. Human commanders exhibited remarkable clarity and adaptability, adjusting strategies in real time while maintaining morale and coordination. Alien leaders learned from these methods, adopting communication techniques, operational planning, and crisis management strategies that enabled them to reclaim control over their own forces. Together, the two species created a synergy that amplified their effectiveness, transforming what had seemed impossible into achievable victory. The enemy's situation had deteriorated significantly. Major strongholds had fallen, supply lines were disrupted, and morale was shattered. Alien cities were slowly being secured, civilians were being protected, and the alien defenders had regained the confidence and skill to continue resisting. Humanity's presence had turned a desperate situation into a manageable one. The tide had decisively shifted, and the final victory was within reach. The enemy was no longer an unstoppable force. They were a beaten adversary facing a combined, coordinated, and relentless opposition. This moment marked the true demonstration of humanity's strength and strategy. The combination of technological innovation, tactical brilliance, adaptability, and moral clarity had created a force capable of transforming despair into hope. The aliens had asked for help, and humans had answered not merely by fighting, but by restoring confidence, providing protection, and inspiring courage. Humanity's impact extended beyond the battlefield, creating a partnership that united two species against a common threat. With the enemy weakened, human and alien forces could focus on delivering the decisive blow, liberating the remaining territories, and ensuring the long-term safety of the planet. The alien people, once on the brink of extinction, could finally believe that survival, recovery, and peace were possible. Humanity had not only turned the tide, they had shown what it meant to be a force for protection, justice, and hope. The battle had shifted from desperation to determination, from chaos to control, and from fear to confidence. The final victory was approaching, and with it, the promise of a new beginning. With the enemy finally on the retreat and their forces shattered, the alien planet was on the brink of a new era. Humanity had achieved what many had thought impossible. They had intervened in a war thousands of light years away and turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into a battle that could be won. But victory was more than just defeating the enemy. It was about restoring hope, rebuilding what had been destroyed, and ensuring that the alien civilization could survive and thrive once again. As the human fleet moved through the skies and the ground forces secured strategic areas, a wave of relief swept across the alien population. After weeks of fear, uncertainty, and devastation, they could finally breathe again. The first priority for the humans was the safety and protection of civilians. Years of war had left cities in ruins, infrastructure destroyed, and families displaced. Human teams worked tirelessly, establishing safe zones where survivors could receive food, water, and medical care. Hospitals were set up in temporary structures, often protected by human forces to ensure they could operate without interruption. Advanced medical technology allowed humans to treat injuries that would have otherwise been fatal, and they shared knowledge with alien doctors, teaching them new techniques and methods. The aliens, many of whom had never seen such technology before, marveled at the efficiency and care with which humans operated. This was not just a military victory, it was a humanitarian one. Simultaneously, human engineers and technicians began assessing the damage to the planet's infrastructure. Buildings that could be salvaged were reinforced, transportation networks were cleared, and communication lines restored. Humans worked with alien experts, combining their knowledge and resources to repair and rebuild. Even areas that had been completely destroyed were mapped and analyzed, allowing reconstruction efforts to begin. The aliens watched as humans coordinated massive teams with incredible efficiency, turning chaos into order with remarkable speed. Communities that had once feared extinction now had the tools and guidance to begin reclaiming their lives. The psychological impact of humanity's intervention was profound. The alien people, who had been traumatized by weeks of war, destruction, and loss, began to regain hope and confidence. Children who had hidden for days in fear now played in safe zones, families reunited, and soldiers who had lost faith in their cause returned to active roles in rebuilding efforts. The presence of humans brought not only protection but also a sense of possibility. They had shown that even in the darkest times, survival was possible, and they had provided the means and guidance to make it happen. The aliens began to see themselves not as victims but as survivors, capable of rebuilding and thriving with the support of their new allies. Human forces continued to pursue the remaining enemy units, ensuring that the invaders could not regroup or launch further attacks. Using a combination of strategic strikes, targeted operations, and intelligence gathering, humans systematically eliminated the remaining threats. Enemy leaders, realizing that defeat was inevitable, attempted to flee, only to be intercepted by human squads and contained. By the end of the operations, the enemy had been decisively defeated, with their forces neutralized and their capacity to harm the alien civilization eliminated. This final victory was not achieved through sheer force alone. It was the result of meticulous planning, adaptability, coordination, and the ability to inspire and work with the alien population. After securing the planet, humans focused on long-term stability and recovery. They trained alien forces in advanced defense tactics, shared technology to strengthen planetary defenses, and provided guidance for sustainable reconstruction. Strategic plans were put in place to ensure that the alien civilization could defend itself against future threats, reducing the likelihood that they would ever be as vulnerable again. Humans also worked on restoring essential services, such as energy, transportation, and communication systems, helping to create a foundation for the society to flourish once more. The goal was not just to win a battle but to empower an entire civilization to rebuild and prosper independently. The aliens expressed profound gratitude for the humanity that had arrived at their moment of greatest need. Leaders of the planet formally acknowledged the human contribution, praising not only their strength and tactical brilliance but also their compassion and dedication. The bond between the two species grew stronger, founded on mutual respect, trust, and shared experience. Humans had not come to conquer, they had come to help. This act of selfless intervention left a lasting impression on the alien population, reshaping their understanding of cooperation, courage, and the potential of interstellar allies. Humanity's influence extended beyond immediate military and humanitarian aid. They introduced technologies that would transform the alien society, from renewable energy systems and medical devices to advanced educational tools and communication networks. Humans shared knowledge that would allow the alien civilization to rebuild more efficiently, protect itself more effectively, and advance more rapidly than they could have imagined. Alien engineers, scientists, and scholars eagerly collaborated, learning from humans while integrating their own culture and knowledge into these systems. This partnership created a lasting legacy, one that would continue to shape the planet for generations to come. The aftermath of the conflict also provided lessons for both species. Humans learned how to operate in unfamiliar environments, adapt strategies to alien technologies and ecosystems, and manage large-scale interstellar coordination. Aliens learned the importance of preparation, collaboration, and the strategic use of technology. Together, they had achieved something extraordinary, turning a near-total loss into a triumph, transforming despair into hope, and creating a bond that would endure far beyond the conflict itself. The story of the battle and its resolution would be remembered as a defining moment for both species, illustrating the power of courage, compassion, and unity in the face of overwhelming odds that humans prepared to depart. There was a sense of accomplishment but also reflection. They had arrived as strangers, answering a plea for help, and they were leaving as heroes, mentors, and partners. The alien civilization, once on the brink of extinction, was now secure and poised for a bright future. Civilians, soldiers, and leaders alike expressed gratitude, and a deep sense of respect had formed between the two species. Humans had demonstrated that true strength was not just in defeating an enemy but in protecting lives, restoring hope, and empowering others to survive and thrive. The final stages of the recovery involved more than rebuilding physical structures. Humans worked to restore the social fabric of the alien society. Families were reunited, communities organized relief efforts, and education programs were implemented to help younger generations cope with the trauma of war. Cultural preservation was also emphasized, ensuring that traditions, art, and knowledge would survive alongside the reconstruction of cities and infrastructure. This holistic approach underscored humanity's understanding that true recovery required addressing both tangible and intangible needs. Even after the human forces departed, the impact of their intervention continued to resonate. That alien civilization had been saved, not just from immediate destruction but from long-term collapse. They had gained knowledge, technology, and experience that would make them stronger and more resilient. A lasting alliance was formed, a bond that would ensure cooperation, mutual protection, and shared growth in the future. Humanity had not only answered a plea for help, they had reshaped the destiny of an entire world. Looking back on the events, the aliens realized that the human intervention had been transformative in every way. It had demonstrated the potential of unity, courage, and compassion on a scale they had never experienced. It had shown that even when all seemed lost, decisive action and unwavering commitment could change the course of history. Human and alien leaders shared this knowledge and experience, ensuring that the lessons learned would continue to benefit both civilizations for generations. In the end, the story of humanity's arrival and intervention became legendary among the alien population. It was recounted in schools, memorialized in art, and celebrated in ceremonies honoring the brave humans who had come from across the stars to save a civilization in its darkest hour. The aliens understood that they had witnessed something extraordinary, not just the arrival of a powerful force, but the arrival of a species capable of combining strength with compassion, intelligence with empathy, and action with responsibility. Humanity had answered a plea for help with unstoppable force, and in doing so, they had left a legacy that would never be forgotten. The final victory was not just about winning a war. It was about restoring life, hope, and dignity to a people who had been on the brink of extinction. Humans had achieved the impossible, turning despair into determination, chaos into order, and fear into courage. The alien civilization, once broken and desperate, was now secure, empowered, and ready to embrace a future full of possibility. And as humanity departed, the bond they had forged, the knowledge they had shared, and the hope they had inspired ensured that this victory would endure far beyond the battlefield, shaping the destiny of an entire civilization for generations to come. In this way, the story concluded not just with the triumph of military strategy but with the triumph of humanity's principles: courage, compassion, innovation, and unity. The aliens had asked for help, and humanity had answered not just with weapons and tactics, but with their hearts, their intelligence, and their unwavering commitment to the preservation of life. The result was a civilization saved, a bond formed, and a story that would be told across the stars for generations, a story of hope, heroism, and the unstoppable force of humanity when it chooses to act for the greater good.